Thank you, French. Much love and greetings to you all. I hope you all had a great New Year's. An interesting holiday that really switched and found its own identity sometime during the 20th century. Now, New Year's is one of the oldest holidays still celebrated. But the exact date and nature of the festivities has changed over time. It originated thousands of years ago in ancient Babylon, celebrated as an 11-day festival on the first day of spring. Now, during this time, many cultures use the sun and moon cycle to decide the first day of the year. The Chinese and the Hebrew calendars still follow a lunar cycle, while the Persian world has fixed the spring equinox as Nowruz, New Year's. It was the Romans and the advent of the Julian calendar which saw January 1st become a common day of celebration, but it followed strictly on religious lines. Now, originally a pagan holiday, Christianity celebrated it as Circumcision Day, since that would be the day baby Jesus was circumcised. Now, perhaps Hallmark had a difficult time selling Circumcision Day cards, so it became the day we now celebrate, a time of nationality, relationships, introspection, and fun, and not a religious festival anymore. Anyhow, regardless of what or how you celebrate, I hope yours was great. Congratulations go out to Claudia, the fantastic artist who designed our webpage and logos and recreated the Urim and Thummim for our site, on the birth of her son Arthur, a beautiful baby brother for Yolanda. At the same time, deepest sympathies go out to Shelley on the loss of her father Jerry, a kind, compassionate, and caring soul, a veteran whose family and their well-being stood above all. God full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest on the wings of your divine presence in the lofty heights of the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the heavens. To the soul of Jerry Lynch, who has gone to his eternal rest, as all his family and friends pray for the elevation of his soul. His resting place shall be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore the Master of Mercy will care for him under the protection of his wings for all time, and bind his soul in the bond of everlasting life. And special thanks go to Harvey for sending those old but fantastic Jewish jokes. Now, I know you're not supposed to like stereotype humor, but it's somewhat acceptable if you belong to the stereotype. Now, the things we can say about ourselves are different than the things others can say about us, and I'm going to share a couple of them with you. The Harvard School of Medicine did a study of why Jewish women like Chinese food so much. The study revealed that this is due to the fact that wonton, spelled backward, is not now. Question: what's the difference between a Rottweiler and a Jewish mother? Answer: eventually the Rottweiler lets go. And finally, have you seen the newest Jewish American princess horror movie? It's called Debbie Does Dishes. Are those not great stereotypical jokes? Thank you, Harvey. Now, there were some simply fascinating comments on Moses and his history, and about several of the theories regarding his origins, his nationality, and comments about evidence or lack thereof for mass exodus of people, either physical or via historical writings. Hey, just as there's no written history of Jesus by people who wrote history at the time, it does not affect people's belief systems, and it does not mean it did or did not happen as we imagine. Really, the question is, what difference does it make what Moses' nationality was? Is not what is important what he did? He brought the gift of freedom to man, and what a gift that is. He brought what we believe was the first formal system of monotheism, regardless of what we have done with and to it. And he brought law. He brought ethics. He brought greater spiritual understanding to humanity. Now, I think we all agree he did not have horns, as Michelangelo's statue suggests, and we will talk about that great mistranslation when the time comes. And a number of people really took to that one-sentence summary that said, this is the story of the true son, Moses, who introduces the force that causes everything to be, Yahweh, to all humanity, so that everyone who struggles with God, Yisrael, can be free of the degradation of nameless fears, Pharaoh, that keep them constrained or imprisoned, Mitzrayim or Egypt. And they suggested they actually could look at the book of Exodus and even much of the rest of the Torah differently, based on those few words. As Bob Dylan sings, most of the time, it's well understood most of the time, I wouldn't change it if I could. I can make it all match up. I can hold my own. I can deal with the situation right down to the bone. And we're about to examine a situation that changed the course of history. Well, this is it. This is it. Make no mistake where you are. This is it. Your back's to the corner. And we will see two combatants in their respective corners. In one corner, God, and in the other, Pharaoh. And this was never designed to be a fair fight. Va'era, and I appeared. Now this is a book in a parsha that speaks to large messages. It speaks to God's introduction to humanity. Now maybe someone should have reminded him or her that you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. It speaks to freedom from fear, the emotion that can rob you of the one thing you never recover, time. And it speaks to the ethics and morals of how to live together. As in the past, you will notice inconsistencies and story blending. As ancient sources came together in the edited version of the Exodus, you see how Aaron goes from being Moses' Levite or priestly brother to being his real brother. You see names still remain a key component. And as the Parsha opens, God says in Exodus 6:3, and I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, and I was not known to them by my name, Yahweh, he who causes to be. And yet, we have seen that name. We've actually seen it several times. Now, in the Noahic covenant, God is called Elohim. In the Abrahamic covenant, God is known as El Shaddai. But the covenant that will be made with this generation at Sinai, the Great Epiphany, will be with the use of the name Yahweh. Here is the book of names. Do not let the name take from the deed, as with the name of Moses. Do not let these take away from the incredible story of freedom. Now you may also see political posturing being put in place. We're told Aaron marries the sister of the chieftain of the tribe of Judah. Now it is noteworthy that the priestly and political elite marry. And this suggests that such marriages occurred later between royal and high priestly families of Israel. But this week begins the story of the great plagues, one of the most well-known of all Bible stories, a celestial throwback to the creation myths, laying the moral foundation that good overcomes bad, love overcomes hate, freedom is an unalienable right, and the power of right is unstoppable. And in all this, a foundational structure of the Bible will actually be established. It is the cornerstone of Israelite faith that God has proven his divinity and his special attachment to Israel by the dramatic act of liberating the people from Egyptian slavery. It is a tale believed the world over, but one with no kernel of evidence. Now, some modern scholars arguing from the silence of Egyptian sources on any Hebrew slave population have raised doubts about whether the Hebrews were ever in Egypt. Doesn't matter. Now, it's what it means at a different level. Now, one of the strangest sets of instructions lays out what's actually going to take place. Exodus 7:1. Ve'omer Yahweh el Moshe Re'eh natatika Elohim leParo. And the Lord said to Moses, see, I have set you as a god to Pharaoh. And Aaron your brother will be your prophet. You it is who will speak all that I charge you, and he will send off the Israelites from his land, and I, on my part, shall harden Pharaoh's heart, that I may multiply my signs and my portents in the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh will not heed you. Now, Moses will be God to Pharaoh. Aaron will speak as his prophet. God will harden Pharaoh's heart, so he will not let the people go. Now, wasn't the point to let the people go? So why will God stop it when we all thought that was what this was about? That this is what he promised to do. And I'll harden Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh won't listen to you. Now do not forget, this is about God becoming known to all of man. And this is how he chooses to be known. So without Pharaoh's resistance, God would not have the opportunity to deploy his great wonders and so demonstrate his insuperable power in history and the emptiness of the power attributed to the gods of Egypt. I don't know, friends, I have a hard time with God needing to exert great destruction and cruelty in order to make an impression. His method of introduction are the plagues, and there's lots of commentaries on them. Look for pairs. 2 involving the Nile, 2 plagues of insects, 2 epidemics affecting beasts and humans respectively, 2 plagues devastating the crops, and the final darkness paired with the death of the firstborn. They also match up with the order of creation, and you can read an innumerable selection of essays about them. We think the story is about freeing the slaves. It's far more than that. It is about freeing yourself from what enslaves you. That is Pharaoh. And it is about freeing yourself to worship as you will. Now, Moses' demand was not simply freedom for a people. It was the right to go on a 3-day journey to worship God. Now, to some, this was simply more deception because the people never were going to come back. To others, it was the story of religious or spiritual tolerance and acceptance. To others, still, it is about the personal call to freedom. All are a part of this. But there's going to be a deal struck. God says in Exodus 6:7, "And I shall take you to me as a people, and I shall become your God. And you'll know that I am Yahweh your God, who is bringing you out from under Egypt's burdens." Well, there's the deal. I'll take you from Egypt, so you can come serve me, and everything will be prefaced from this point forward by God's referencing everything to the freedom from Egypt, not from creation. Now, with the advent of the first plague, the Bloody Nile, in Exodus 7:17, we see everything that is going to happen. The Lord said, "By this you'll know that I am Yahweh." This is the story of the introduction of the deity by name to the world. So this statement can be understood not only as establishing the existence of the name deity to Pharaoh, but also as establishing what the name conveys. Remember, names have meaning, and therefore it is like God saying, "By this you'll know that I am the one who causes being." And so it begins. The Nile turns bloody. For 7 days there'll be no water. Fish die. Everything stinks. Now, it's a great start. The two life force fluids of earth, of God, and creation, water. The first separation was water from above, from water below, and blood, the life force of man, the one true forbidden food. Now, next we have frogs, up out of the water, and they'll go everywhere. But when it stops, they die, and it will stink again. Now, notice, my friends, Pharaoh is ready to let the people go at this point and sacrifice to God, but he is not allowed to do so. God keeps saying, "So that you will know that I am the one who causes being in the land." The unsaid name in the book of names, and we have forgotten it has meaning. And the third plague is lice, like dust, in man and beast. And fourth is the horde. But there'll be no horde in Goshen to show the Lord separates and controls. Another reminder that creation was a series of separations. And believe it or not, this is actually one of the most contentious of the plagues, because the Hebrew term arov occurs only here. And the only plausible meaning is from the verbal root that means to mix. Now, some medieval commentators imagine that this is a mingling of sundry beasts of prey. But this seems unlikely, because as verse 27 makes clear, the arov has infested the Egyptians rather than torn them limb from limb. And not one remained suggests minuscule constituents of the horde. And so a plague of infuriatingly poisonous insects also makes a much better pair with the preceding plague. And the King James Version's swarm of flies is, I think, a pretty good guess. Now, we're also told the land was ravaged. This indication of general devastation suggests that the second of the two plagues of insects is somehow far more intense than the first. And the fifth plague was pestilence of livestock, camels, cattle, sheep, but not against Israel's. And notice, friends, it says camels, and we have already discussed that camels were not in use in Egypt at the time. Exodus 9:5. Tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land, and the Lord did this thing on the next day. And all the livestock of Egypt died, but of the livestock of Israel, not one died. Now the plagues are more specific. A time is being called, and it is an immediate result. Tomorrow, boom. And notice it says all the livestock of Egypt died. Well, that's not quite true, as you will see in just the next plague. Now the sixth plague creates visions of the past and visions of the future. Soot from the kiln or furnace, becoming burning boils on man and beast, brings to mind the kilns of Nazi Germany, a boil on humanity, the black dust from the furnace, turning into broadcast contamination. Just the sheer mention of a furnace is ominous. And also, the only other use of the word until now was to describe the smoke of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now it comes again as a harbinger of something awful. And the next time it will be mentioned will be in connection with God's descent onto Mount Sinai. Then it will still be frightening, but it will be transformed from something ominous into something reflecting the closest that God ever comes to a human community in the Bible. And then the word will never occur in the Bible again. Now what this means is humans must overcome their fear in order to come close to the divine. Have we done that yet? And the Lord toughened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not heed them, just as the Lord had spoken to Moses. Now we will see several times that Pharaoh was willing, and the Lord toughened Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh, the living God, was nothing more than a puppet that had no choice. We may think we are all kinds of things. The danger of ego. Now ask anyone about this story. Hey, every child knows the story. Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh says, "No." So God sends the 10 plagues in order to punish the Egyptians for enslaving the Israelites. And because good and God triumph over evil, the people leave and God gives them the 10 Commandments, the cornerstone of how we live our lives still to this day. Well, that plays a little differently than what we read. Why? Well, we're reminded again and again, as it says in Exodus 9:16, "So as to show you my power, and so that my name will be told through all the earth." Wow, how sad. All that suffering, all that destruction, all that negativity. For what? Is that the only way we can learn? The Exodus story is conceived as an establishing of the credentials of the God of Israel for all humankind. Hence his awesome power has to be demonstrated in one plague after another, and Pharaoh's repeated resistance is required condition of the demonstration. It was locked in place from the beginning. There could be no winner. Humanity would truly suffer from this, and it has continued to, as we wreak havoc in the name of God. God don't make promises that he don't keep. You got some big dreams, baby, but in order to dream, you got to still be asleep. When you gonna wake up? Now, our 7th and final plague for today is hail, unlike any that has ever been seen. And there was very heavy hail, with fire flashing in the midst of the hail, the like of which there had not been in all the land of Egypt from the time it became a nation. Now that's a long time, even then. And remember, thunder and lightning are the characteristic weapons of the sky god. The raining down of celestial fire also sets up yet another correspondence with the story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Pharaoh sent and called to Moses and to Aaron and said to them, "I have offended this time. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Entreat the Lord, and no more of God's thunder and hail, and let me send you off, and you shall not continue to stay." Well, except once again we read, and Pharaoh's heart toughened, and he did not send off the Israelites, just as the Lord had spoken through Moses. Now when I read this parsha, my friends, I think of Flip Wilson and how he created a national catchphrase with "the devil made me do it." Except in this case, Pharaoh could easily say God made me do it. And he did. And no one is going to laugh. The world is sacred, my friends. It knows everything in it. Express your gratitude, light a candle, make a wish. Celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom, be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other. We share this ride together, men and women equally. Let us send out love, not fear. Send out peace, harmony, good healing to all who need it. And please do, learn to forgive and learn to love. Follow the call of Exodus, the call of freedom. The journey is yours to enjoy. And remember, the American slaves of the Civil War understood. They were Israel, and the slave master was Egypt. And so they sang, "When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go." Friends, you can get it too. You are Israel. Who is your Pharaoh? Don't forget, Moses was 80 when he was sent to speak to Pharaoh. It is never too late to face your fears and be free. Well, bless you all. Have a fantastic week, a week of love and healing and thanks and peace. The light is increasing in your life, so keep lighting the lights of miracles. Keep dreaming. Enjoy the new energy of the year. And thank you all for joining me. Shabbat Shalom.